All right, well, welcome everybody. This is my contact information. I'm on Twitter as Eye on Access. And my disability is called Retinitis Pigmentosa, or some people call it RP for short. I have included a link here to the National Institutes of Health so that you can learn a little bit more about it. I bet you weren't going to, you didn't know you were going to learn some anatomy tonight. But this is a diagram of the eye, and in the back of the eye, there's something called a retina. And that's basically where the light is focused and where you pick up that light information, and then it gets transmitted to the brain so that you can actually see. Well, in my case, the cells in the back of my eye, in the retina, are basically slowly dying off. So this is what the eye looks like when you have retinitis pigmentosa like I do. And the pigmentosa in the name is basically those spots that you see in the periphery of the eye. Wherever these cells have died, basically pigmentation has formed, and so that part of the retina can't receive any light anymore, which means you can't see. So with retinitis pigmentosa, it's also known as tunnel vision, or in my case, it's more like islands of vision, because it's not a perfect circle. There are spots where I can see out on the periphery, and then there are spots where I can't see in the middle as well. So the things that are most affected are peripheral vision, low light vision, and then sort of other related issues, that are related to those two parts of the condition, like depth perception. So steps are a big challenge for me. Tracking movement, that's also another big challenge. And then sudden light changes. So like going into a room from a bright day or going out from a dark room into a bright day can be a challenge for me. It takes a long time for my eyes to adjust. And then if I drop something on the floor, then I have a challenge picking that up, because it takes a while for my eyes to find it. So in terms of my technology accommodations, just some simple things that really make my life a lot easier, and that's really what usability is all about. It's about making your life easier. And so for me, the first one is the large cursor. In fact, you can see it right here. That's about the size that I always have my cursor set to. And so on any computer that I'm using, that's usually the first thing that I do, is go into the system preferences and change the cursor to the biggest size that I can get, or close to it. The problem is that sometimes it's a challenge when your cursor is so big to make very precise selections. So like, for instance, when I have to agree to flash alerts, like Flash, the software Flash, I sometimes have to dial it back down so that I can make that selection and then turn it back up. The other thing that I do is spoken alerts. So if I'm trying to save a document, and sometimes that save dialogue or other dialogues and alerts, they may pop up in a part of the screen where I'm not paying attention to it. And so I may keep clicking on the screen and hearing that thump sound that says you can't do anything. In reality, I can't do anything because there's a dialogue somewhere else on the screen. So for me, I like to turn on these spoken alerts. They're in the preferences on different places on different computers, but on the Mac, which is what I use, they're under dictation and speech. And so I'll just enable that option there for announcing those alerts when they're also displayed. One of my favorite features is not an accessibility feature, but it's a feature of Safari, the web browser on the Mac. It's called Reader. And what Reader does is when you go to a website and you see the icon that I've highlighted here that has the sort of squiggly lines on it, you can turn on Reader and it cleans up the page. And so for somebody with limited peripheral vision, that just makes it much easier for me to find that content without having to deal with all the navigation, all the ads, and so on. So I will use that on not only on the Mac, but on the iPad as well. And on the iPad, what's really cool is in iOS 11, you can leave it on permanently. So it's called Persistent Reader. So if you tap and hold the icon, you can choose to leave it on for all websites or just the current website that you're on. And then when you go to a different website, it will revert back to the default view. Within Reader, you can also customize the appearance. So you can go in and choose different font size, different font type, different backgrounds. So it gives you a lot of customization. And So that's the way that I look at it, that this is just a way for you to customize your environment for reading and for studying so that you're not straining as much. Environmental control, so kind of to tie back to what Dr. Anderson said, this has been something that's huge for me right now that I'm experimenting a lot with. I have the Amazon Echo, I have the Google Home, and I use both of those to control my lights, which is the primary use for me for these smart speakers. Because again, light is what my disability is all about. So if it's sometimes difficult for me to walk around the house without, not tripping on things. So it's nice. One of the things that I've done is that my lights come on automatically when I pull into my complex. So as soon as I get to my house, the lights are on. So that way I don't even have to worry about that. So that's possible with a lot of these smart speakers now. You can set up hue lights so that they come on and help you with that. Here are just some examples. I can control those lights also from my iPhone, from my iPad, from my Apple Watch, if I have it on, and even using Siri, and as I said, Amazon Echo and Google Home. Now, my latest toy is the Harmony Hub. Remotes are a big challenge for me because they're always dark, and my couch always seems to eat them. I don't know, they just kind of seem to disappear. So I've replaced all of my remotes for all of these appliances with just one, which is basically my iPhone. I pull up an app, I can now control my TV, my AV system, a Bose radio that I use for podcasts and radio, and all of the set-top boxes, the Fire TV, Apple TV, as well as all the lights. And I can even create scenes where I can say, watch TV, and the lights are adjusted, the TV comes on, and it even puts it into the right channel. So I have a favorite channel that it's already configured to come on when I create that or I activate that scene. So it's about both configuring the environment on my computer for me, but also configuring the environment in my home to make it more inviting, to make it easier and less frustrating for me to get around and use things in my home. And Kendra mentioned this technique already. For her is a way to help her with her focus. For me, it's all about eye health. The Pomodoro, basically what happens with me is I'll get really focused and I'll work for a couple of hours and then forget to take a break, and then my eyes get a lot of strain and I get a headache. So with the Pomodoro technique, it allows me to take frequent breaks. And I use a Chrome extension called Pomodoro or marinara. So you see what they did there? It's a play on the tomato theme of the Pomodoro technique. So with marinara, I can set these 45-minute work sessions and then a 15-minute break. And I'll do that for every day. And that helps me ensure that I'm not tiring out my eyes. So that is it for me. That's just kind of a little bit of insight into my experiences as a person with low vision, some of the things that I use both in terms of technology and strategy. So